My name is Reinhard. I'm one of the flight directors of the Amadi 18 mission, and today I'm also media, and I will guide you a little bit through the Mission Support Center and give you a bit of a background of what we're doing here and why we even have a Mission Support Center in addition to the people on Mars. And excuse me. So, always switch off your phone before you start the live stream, I would say. Good. So, first of all, you've probably heard of the Amadi 18 mission, otherwise you would not be in this hangout. I see we already have 7-8 viewers. That's great. So first of all, a little bit about the Amadi 18 mission. It's the 12th mission of the Austrian Space Forum. We have done a few before over the last more than 10 years. And this is so far our biggest and most international mission that we had so far. So almost 25 nations, more than 100 people involved, 19 experiments, 16 different institutions. So it's huge. Okay, why do we have a mission support center? Well, as you have in, for example, the Apollo missions or also the ISS missions, you have a mission control center that is actively controlling what the astronauts are doing as best as they can every minute of the day, basically. And for us, because we are simulating Mars here, and Mars is quite far away, we'll have a time delay there. It can be 4 minutes, it can be 22 minutes. We picked something in the middle and we said we have 10 minutes time delay from Earth to Mars, and then from Mars to Earth back again. And this is why we call it support center, because we can't really control a mission where you have a 20-minute time delay for each question that's asked. So imagine you're at home and you want to ask your partner or your kids or whoever to go shopping, and you tell them, well, we still need some milk. Did you get the milk? And they are already at the supermarket. So it takes 10 minutes for the message to go there, and then it's 10 more minutes to go back. So by the time you get their answer, they will probably already be back or something like that. So that's why with that much time delay, we can't actively control the mission, but we can support it. So in the field on Mars, they're very busy with day-to-day operations. That means they have to go out, do experiments, put on the analog spacesuits, do housekeeping. Yeah, so everything is part of what they have to do day to day. Recharge batteries, write reports, go to sleep very late because they have so much work to do. But this is how we can support them here. We can look at the long-time perspective and say, well, you have done this experiment a set number of times at location X. It would be good if you would go to another location the next time. So we can look at the science more closely. We have also a remote science support team, which is a team that is either present here in the Mission Support Center or remotely somewhere in the world where we can send the data to, and they can give us some feedback on what place, what rock to pick up next, for example, to simplify that. We have also a flight planning team here who is actively planning every 15 minutes. So we have 15-minute time slots throughout the day. And these slots include, as I mentioned before, things like housekeeping, things like preparing something, things like repairing the suit, for example. Yeah. So many different things that need to be scheduled because you lose track of it otherwise. And that's why we have a lot of people here in the background, in the back rooms, you could say, working. I will just give you a quick look around so that you can see what it looks like here. Everybody is... So yeah, just as an information, the active simulation for today has ended. That means that the crew on Mars is now back in the base, and although we can still in contact with them via time delayed chat, they are not. They don't need so much active support now. So the suits, the analog astronauts, are not outside at the moment because in Oman it's already 8 p.m. The sun has set and it's pitch dark outside, and you can imagine in the desert there's no light pollution nearby. So it's really dark, and this is also the awesome part. So I will give you as best as I can. Let me show. This is basically the view from the flight director's seat. So you can see these computers are the flight director's computers. We have screens at the back of the wall. They show different things. We have the flight plan for today on it. We have, well, a nice picture of a night sky, a long exposure. We have some telemetry that's not active at the moment, but it would show us what the analog astronauts see when they are in the suit outside, and also a camera inside one of the operations central, basically. And then in the upper corner, we have the chat, and this is our time delayed chat. So every message we send is 10 minutes time delayed until Mars receives it, and 10 minutes back when they send something. You see people are still busily working here on different things, so reports have to be filed and so on. Okay, now let's get into the questions, and we'll just have to open this. So we got a few questions, and just going through them. How long is the mission? Okay, I didn't mention that before. The mission itself is 1 month. We started first with a preparation phase where our crew already arrived in Oman, and then we had the landing day, which basically means that from that day onwards we were in isolation on Mars in Oman, which then means that they don't have any contact with outside people, ideally. So that's why we try to do everything ourselves now, and our crew of 15 people is alone. Are we allowed to take breaks and get off the suits outside? And how is the hab constructed? So the habitat is a series of containers. So we used normal standard containers and furnished them inside for what we needed. And then there's also in the middle of the base, you probably have seen some pictures on Twitter already, or some other platforms, Facebook, where in the middle of the base we have an inflatable dome, inflatable structure that was organized by our Omani partners, and that can also be used for meetings and getting everybody together in one room, and also to place some experiments. And it looks cool. So are we allowed to take breaks and get out of the suits? Yes, the way our simulation works, because we have such a highly sophisticated analog spacesuit simulator, that's a mouthful, but it's a spacesuit simulator that is very sophisticated. It has a computer, it has sensors inside. We're actively monitoring the life signs of our astronauts. We have biomedical engineers here on Earth who also watch the data. And that basically means not everybody who's outside has a suit on, but the people who are doing the experiments in the framework of the simulation of simulating having a restrictive suit on, a space suit, these people, they are not allowed to take it off outside unless we have an emergency. But there are other people outside, so it's not as strict in that regard. I know that there are other simulations where everybody's wearing a spacesuit, but these spacesuits or these mock-ups, they are usually much simpler. So we only have 2 at the moment, OeWF Sierra and OeWF X-Ray. Another question, what are the days like and how do you spend your time? So I can answer that from 2 perspectives. From the Mars perspective, they are very busy. They get up, and even before breakfast, they sometimes have to do some maintenance, check some batteries, check that there is fuel in our quad bikes, and so on. We have people then preparing the breakfast. They have meetings. Some people help the analog astronauts putting on the suits, while other people perform experiments within the base. So we have, for example, sort of hydroponics experiment where we grow our own, well, it's not, it's vegetables, I think it's radishes. So that's one of the experiments that our partners provided. Anyway, how else do they spend the time? Well, they are out until the sun sets, because then it's getting dark and then it's not safe anymore unless we take precautions for that. And even when the sun has set at around 6:30, they're still busy writing reports, collecting data from some of the experiments, cleaning up and maybe I even have some free time, because that's also important. Our day from the Mission Support Center perspective is a bit different. So we have, as you've seen before, the classical environment with lots of screens and headphones and so on, where we best can follow the mission. So we used to get up very early. It's a bit better now because we shifted the EVAs to afternoon EVAs in the field. But before that, we had our EVAs start in the morning or at lunchtime, Oman time or Mars time, which basically meant that we had to get up at 5 a.m. in Innsbruck to start the day at 6. Now it's a bit better. So yeah, the tough life of a flight controller. Another question, more about Oman again, is it true that the temperature in Oman is the same as on Mars? Well, in this case, it's not true. We went to Oman because there are certain features there that are similar to what we expect on Mars. The temperature is not one of them. So we went to Oman out of many reasons, geological reasons, but also because it's a desert and it's dry, which is similar to what we find on Mars, but the temperature is a lot different. So on Mars, on the hottest day, you might get 10 degrees Celsius in the hottest region you can imagine, or maybe 20. But usually it's minus 70, minus 110 degrees on Mars, somewhere in between. And in Oman, it's around 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. So that's not the same. But this is also not what we're simulating in this case. We had some previous testing campaigns where we went with the suit into a chamber that cools down to minus 70 and minus 110 degrees to simulate that aspect. So that was also quite cool, pun intended in this case. We have another question, how we communicate with the field. And I mentioned that already before. Our primary communication line is a chat. So I can briefly show you that. We have here, and that means our messages are color-coded. So messages from Earth are blue and messages from Mars are red. And they have a timestamp with the time they were sent, which is important because you have to factor in the time delay. And more often than not, it happens that we ask the field something, and then we're like, why have they not responded? I mean, why can't they answer a simple question? And then we look at the timestamp and we realize they might have answered already, but the message has not gotten back to us. So that's something you really have to keep in your mind, and that changes operations quite a lot. So in the past, we had simulations where we didn't have a time delay. And back then, we also used active voice communication in both directions. But nowadays, we're only listening to what's happening on Mars, and we're not actively communicating back to them, because it's quite hard to have a phone call with 10 minutes time delay in both directions. How many people are in the MSC? Well, that's fluctuating. Unless on Mars, we're not stuck here. So some of our people can go and don't have to stay here the whole month. But we're usually around 15 to 25 people in the Mission Support Center. Adding a lot of people who are available remotely, that are actually not in Innsbruck in the Mission Support Center, but in some other part of the world, which nowadays is not a problem anymore with well, the communication technologies we have. When did you start preparing for this mission? A long time ago. So about 2 years it takes to organize a mission of this size. And our management team, yeah, they had a lot of work to do the last 2 years from their side. But what we also did is we trained our flight controllers and all the teams that work in the Mission Support Center. So flight planning, IT, ground support, remote science support, media, everybody who was involved in how to operate the consoles and how to efficiently communicate with each other, and well, how to simulate Mars. So we have training programs for the last 2 years now, the analog mission basic training and the analog mission advanced training. So yeah, and through these courses, we educated quite a lot of people in analog Mars research. Okay, let's see another question. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you might have heard that there is a mission going on in Israel as well, the DMARS mission. And the question is, could they have a communication channel set up to talk shop among themselves, pending imposed isolation studies? So yes, there is actually an experiment that involves our team on Mars communicating with the Israeli team on Mars, and basically simulating two independent teams that are on Mars at the same time talking to each other. So they also can talk without the time delay. Yes, so we have an experiment there, and they're actually also going to talk to each other. I think the mission is starting tomorrow or the day after, and the Israeli mission, and then we also have the communication there. Okay, I have another question. Any advice for aspiring analog astronauts? Well, the advice there is similar to what we would give people who want to become actual astronauts. It's, yeah, study something that you like, and also do the things that you're good at. So that's not necessarily always what, let's see, everybody thinks is best. But okay, well, maybe I should formulate that differently. It's important that you do something you like and you enjoy, so you can be good at, be the best at it, and then we can go from there. Our analog astronauts all have some education in some engineering or scientific background, and from there we have a selection campaign where every 3 to 4 years we select new analog astronauts. So there might be another selection coming up in the coming year, but that's not been decided yet. And well, there it's possible to join. So we have a few more questions. Where will you be having your next simulation Mars camp? Well, that hasn't been decided yet. So we're looking at a couple of different places, and I can tell you when the simulation is probably going to be, and that's going to be in 2020, according to our plans at the moment. But yeah, so we're actively starting to look for places and already did some scouting. Is everyone eligible to take on this experiment? Any minimum requirements? Well, the minimum requirements would be that you have, first of all, the time to be part of this. You have some background. That doesn't always have to be a scientific background, but it helps. It's, well, as I mentioned before, we have our training programs that also include field crew members, prospective field crew members for the next missions. So it's definitely possible. But as you can imagine, because we have a relatively small group of people who can go to our simulated Mars, it's very selective. So do we have any more questions? No more questions. Oh, that was fast. Okay. We'll just... so how good is the situational awareness on Mars? And which things are you aware of and which not? So I'm assuming that means what we know on Earth, what's going on Mars. And well, the situational awareness is okay. It's not perfect because there's a lot of things going on Mars that we are not aware of when it happens because of the time delay. Even if you don't consider the time delay and you say, well, what do we know? We have pictures. So a live video that updates every 10 to 15 seconds where we get snapshots of what they're doing outside. But that only tells you so much. We can actively listen to what the analog astronauts are speaking and people that are speaking to them via our communication channels. So from that, we get quite a good situational awareness, adding the text chat. So, well, let's just say it could always be better, but it's doable to do a good simulation with that. And I would say it's also quite realistic with what you have from an actual Mars mission, because also there we cannot control everything they're doing. So from that perspective, it's a support center, and this is exactly what we're doing. If there are short-term decisions that have to be taken, like if something happens, something that the wind suddenly picks up that was not in the forecast, and then our field commanders who are on Mars have to make decisions like this. And that's where we can't help them. What we can do is, when we are aware of the situation, we can look at another weather forecast and say, well, from our point of view, it looks like that this will only be a short storm and it will be better in half an hour. Or we could tell them, prepare for a global dust storm and you will be there stuck for the next half a year. Who knows, yeah? But these are the things where we actually have to give up a little bit of our control to the field commanders. Okay, so what else can I tell you? Experiments. Well, okay. So we're just checking if there are any questions that are coming in live. I'll have my media assistant, Laura, here. Just looking at questions. Otherwise, no, nothing. Well, what can I say? It's Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So it touches a little bit with the question we had before. So if you want to get involved yourselves, take a look at our webpage, Austrian Space Forum. It's oewf.org. It's very easy to find with Google or another search engine. So go to our website, take a look. We're not only doing Mars simulations, but I think this is what gets most people excited. And take a look there. We offer a limited number of internships in the summer. We have projects going on not just in Austria, but mostly, but also around in Europe. And we have a lot of partners, so can't always work with us because it's sometimes not possible due to time constraints or so. But we're not doing these Mars missions alone. The Austrian Space Forum is organizing them. We're putting together the main infrastructure around the whole mission in general. But then we have lots and lots of partners. So, for example, in the case of Oman, we have the National Steering Committee and the Omani Astronomical Society, who helped a great deal of setting up everything in Oman. And then we have lots and lots of partners who actually provide the experiments. So not all of these 19 experiments are from the Austrian Space Forum. The majority are from many different institutions from around the world. So you can also get involved that way if you have an experiment proposal. And the way that works is, like in any other case, you submit a proposal when we have the announcement of opportunity for the next mission. This proposal gets reviewed, refined, and if you're lucky and your proposal is good, you might just be part of the next Simulate Mars mission. And our social media, so my social media teammate, I would say, reminded me that we should also use the social media hashtags. So our hashtags are #Amadi18, #SimulateMars, and our account on Twitter, as most of you probably know, is @OeWF. So, okay, and with that, I think I will close the live stream. I'll just give a chance for everybody in the flight control room to wave to the audience. Yes. Okay. Thanks for joining us. I hope it was interesting for you. And as always, you can Twitter us some questions, and we can also answer them on the social media channels. Have a great afternoon, evening. Goodbye.